How you doing? It's Sandesh here, and I'm here to do a video on an article. It's about the Paris Olympics. You know that shitty opening ceremony that we all saw. Well, I personally didn't see it, but thank God I didn't see it. But this article is on SparkedOnline.com, and it's Paris Olympics, a smug spectacle of wokeness. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Very, very accurate. Um, Anyway, before getting to the article, if you could follow me on X and subscribe on YouTube, Rumble and Odyssey, and TikTok as well, if you don't mind, please. Alright, here we go. Is anyone else bored of queering? Everything's getting queer these days. We've had queering the curriculum, queering the arts, and my personal favourite, queering Palestine. This entails academics unpacking the multiple intersections of queer politics and the Palestinian struggle. Hot tip for the profs, what I mean by most likely means professors. If Hamas ever invites you to discuss their theories, don't agree to meet them on the high floor of a building. Queering the pavement is the only thing they're interested in. Now, with soul zapping in inevitability, we've had the queering of the Olympic Games. Yesterday, obviously, it means that this article. I'm doing this video like a few days late, so apologies about that. I'm just reading it from the article. So, yesterday's rain-sodded opening ceremony in Paris was super LGBTQ and IA. There were drag acts everywhere. A bearded bloke twerked for the world. A bollock naked man in blue paint was served on a platter of fruit to a gaggle of dodging drag queens. He looked like he looked like a fat fucking Smurf. I was like, what the hell? This is this is pretty much a joke. It's pretty much that opening ceremony alone made the Olympics and the Olympic sports nothing but a joke. Look, if I wanted to be exposed to the camp debauchery of drag culture, I'll go to a kindergarten. Actually, no, you just go to Soho if you're into that sort of thing. Just do that. Really was a naff dispiriting affair. It was the first opening ceremony to take place not in a stadium but in the heart of the hosting city. Boat after boat carried the game's athletes along the sign as 300,000 spectators in soaked plastic masks craned their necks for a glimpse. It seemed to go on forever. It was so bad that even the square liberals on X started using their favourite slogan of the right, "Stop the boats." That slogan, it's not the right, it's not the people on the right saying that. It's just people who are against the masses of illegal immigrants coming into the country. That's why they're saying stop the boats. That's what it comes down to. And any idiot knows that. The weather didn't help either. I mean, didn't help. The lashing rain hampered the audio, making it harder to hear the ceremonies and star turns. Celine Dion, Lady Gaga, an upside of the downpour, I suppose. What we could hear was just weird. Like when a headless Maria Antoinette sang the opening bars to an ear-splitting heavy metal ditty, the ceremony organizer, Thomas Jolly, said he wanted his spectacle to be a celebration of being alive. Here we had a celebration of being dead. How the hell did how the hell did that represent was a celebration of being alive? Um, all he wanted to do was just take the piss out of Christianity, and especially the Last Supper. But that's why he chose that's why he chose the famous portrait of the Last Supper. It was obvious this wasn't about a celebration of being alive. These fucking woke people, man, I'm telling you. Then there was the queering. Just as you can't switch on the BBC, visit a library, or have a quiet pray these days without encountering a drag queen, so you can't watch the opening ceremony of the Olympics without seeing porty men in moob hugging outfits, voguing and gloating. You know, and by the way, what makes them think that someone's gonna find them looking sexy dressed like that? If anything, they just look fucking like cheap tarts. Jesus. It was more Eurovision than Olympian. Yeah, it was more Eurovision. more RuPaul than ancient Greece, more sashimi away than Citius, Elitius, Fortius. That's the original Olympic motto. It means faster, higher, stronger. Exactly, the opening ceremony is supposed to it's supposed to be about the sports itself. That's what it's supposed to capture that. But but the thing is, it was obviously done on purpose because, believe it or not, we were once a species that celebrated the moral beauty of sporting heroism rather than the ability of a middle-aged man to lard himself into the sequined gown. And have you noticed it's always these fat bastards that fucking always putting themselves in these like in these outfits that they clearly can't fit into, and then they just cake themselves in makeup. The part of the ceremony that caused the biggest stink was the Camp Last Supper. Yeah, a bunch of drag acts gathered around a buxom woman adorned in a halo crown in an unmistakable mimicking of Da Vinci's painting of Christ and the apostles at their final meal, wearing the smug look of all glib performance artists who love nothing more than to piss off normies because they lack the talent for anything else. That's what it was. They wanted to piss people off, and then end up trying to make themselves look like the victim. That's all this was. It was just about gaslighting people because they're not talented in any way, shape, or form. And anyone with common sense or brain will be able to see it. The drag queens giddily got into their disciple positions, heaped hollow adoration on the Lady Jesus. You could almost hear their thoughts. Oh boy, this is going to piss off all thoughts. Yes, Christians are angry as well as they might be. Might be, of course, they were angry and they had every right to be angry, but it wasn't just the Christians that were angry about it. It was just people were angry about it anyway because it didn't represent the Olympics, and it was so you're just taking the piss out of religion. Why? Religion has doesn't really have anything to do with the Olympics. It's about sport, and it's about like wanting to be the best. That's what the Olympics is about. This was extremely disrespectful to Christians, and that's the thing. They did it to Christians because um, taking the piss out of Christians is now deemed an easy target. They wouldn't do it to They won't do it to Islam. They won't do it to any other religion, and they won't, and they definitely wouldn't do it to Jews especially. But yeah, Christians, no surprise. Now, naturally, there's a backlash against the backlash. Calm down, the woke are saying. Stop being being such prudes and snowflakes. That's funny because the woke community, the LGBTQ community, are the definition of wokes and snowflakes. If you don't think like them, I don't act like them, and then all they want to do is just counsel you and just non-stop complain about you. They're chortling. It's just a little light mockery they're insisting, which is big talk from a section of society that will be weeping into its kefiyets. I don't know what the hell that is, but okay. And demanding heads on spikes if the ceremony had featured a drag act, Mohammed being served a smurf on a plate of fruit with his cock out. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. For me, a non-prude and non-snowflake who fully supports of liberty or blasphemy, the question is not how can you disparage Christ like this, but why would you disparage Christ like this? Exactly why? What was you hoping to gain from this? And the fact that the organisers let this happen and allowed it happen, it tells you everything. At an Olympics opening ceremony in front of 1 billion viewers, well, until we switched off, I have no problem with drag acts in Soho or Les Maras, of course, but at the opening ceremony to an international celebration of human brotherhood, I'm fine with mockery of religious idols and beliefs, if that's what you want to do. But at the Olympic Games, no, doing it in front of just mocking religion. I don't understand the point of it. And if you want to see a drag act, just like it says here, just go to Soho. Why study this ancient competition with the infantile Christ bashing of the conformist godless drums of the modern culture industry? The shallowness of the provocateurs is summed up in the fact that they would never ridicule Islam. Exactly, just like I said. Just imagine if a drag queen at the ceremony had clamberned on a pantomime winged horse in open mockery of the Muslim belief that Muhammad flew to heaven on just such a fantasy creature. Paris would be in flames right now. Thomas Jollywood would be in hiding. The papers would be full of chattering class angst over the evils of Islamophobia. Instead, because it was only JC, Jesus Christ, who got it in the neck, not Mohammed, the liberal press is full of praise. What a unique, queer, and very French ceremony they're trilling. I don't know. I don't know how unique it was. It just came off cheap and pathetic. The knowing profanity of the ceremony was not stunning or brave, it was dumb and cowardly. Christianity is a safe target in 21st century Europe. If you want to stir shit up, give us a drag Mohammed next time. Give us queens causing up to the prophet wearing a boob tube and lipstick. Actually, I got an idea. If you really want to stir shit up, keep it about the Olympic sports, but you know what? Take the piss out of people. Take the piss out of the bronze winners. Just do that. Do an act revolving around bronze winners just because they weren't good enough to get silver or gold. Just do that. You won't, of course, because you know the potential consequences. There is something sick about well-paid performance artists taking a cheap shot at Christianity in a country where people have been shot to death and literally beheaded for raising questions about Islam. They're the brave ones, not you. And yet, rather than show solidarity with them, you look the other way and throw shade out on far easier targets. What moral weaklings! It would be a mistake, though, to see yesterday's wet lane spectacle as irreligious, for in truth it represented the ascendancy of a new religion, woke. That's the thing. The woke culture is a religion in itself. They might as well just have their own church like Scientology do. If they have, I mean, they'll be able to get their own church, no problem. Why don't they just do that? They act like their own community is like a cult religion anyway. So really, we might as well just go all out. It's actually fitting that before the eyes of the world, France replaced Christ and his disciples with queers and drag queens. It was a dramatic rendering of a real trend, the usurping of old moral values by the dispiriting belief system of the new elite. Indeed, if you want to be cancelled today, forget mocking Christ. Try referring to a trans woman as a he. Yeah, just do that. Don't call her trans woman. Just say that bloke who's literally lost his mind and just caked up in makeup. They'll have your hair like Maria Antoinette. Yes, if it's blasphemy they want, let's give it to them. Trans women are men. Drag queens should stay out of school. Islam has loads of mad beliefs. What else should we add? Look, Islam has loads of mad beliefs. Look, the thing is, I'm personally against of like taking a piss out of religion in general. To be honest, I don't see the point of it. If anything, and I just feel it just comes off very cheap. I mean, I don't see the point of why not just be um, why not just be friendly to one another? What the hell's wrong with that? Anyway, thanks for watching this video, and please like, comment, and subscribe on this video. And if you could follow me on X and subscribe on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey, and TikTok as well, if you don't mind, please. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.